Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and today we're just going to do a very quick video on some of the lesser known changes happening in 8.1 that you should be aware of. I know it's a little late for Team USA, but I'm doing what I can for Team EU with this first one. And that is that they are changing the file structure of your game. So back up your WTF folder, EU dudes, and if you haven't logged on yet in Team USA, if you're at work or something like that, then please back up your WTF folder before you log into the game. It doesn't seem to be causing many problems for most people, but be safe. There's nothing worse than logging in and all your UI and all that is screwed up. Just copy it to your desktop before you boot up the game. When you boot up the game, it will alter the file structure. If everything is working accordingly, fine, happy days. But if not, then you've got a nice backup so you can rectify the situation later. So just back up the WTF folder in your WoW clients, in the in your Windows files, and you should be good. The next change, which has only been revealed today, is that you will no longer be able to delete Keystones in 8.1. This has to be one of the most infuriating and banal changes they've made to the game, but it is technically a fix. I know how many people like technically a fix because it wasn't intended, maybe. If you're not sure what I'm referring to, if you were running a dungeon, you could delete your keystone, finish that Mythic Plus, and you would receive a new keystone, which would be lesser than the dungeon you had just completed, but of course it would then pick from the selection of dungeons in order to finish you off. So the problem here is, this is what people were doing in order to get rid of what was considered dead keys. This affects a lot of people because dead keys aren't just a high-end issue. Dead keys are particularly worse in the more casual community. You can get a key. There are a lot of dungeons that, like Temple of Sethrak on Tyrannical, that the community just doesn't want to do. And if you are, trying to push your key, or you want to get your key done, you want to move your key up, you want to do something with your key, and you open that and you're used to pugging, then you're kind of screwed because you can't just delete that key, go and try and pug a dungeon and get a brand new key, hopefully not for Temple of Sethrak, so you can push it up. That's going to be changing. It's also a little infuriating when, let's say, you previous week, and this has actually been a major feature this week. If you're not sure, Titan Residuum, I believe that's how I was saying it, Titan Residuum, whatever the fuck this arbitrary currency is called, but it is the arbitrary currency that is being used to purchase Azerite armor. So you can select it, or you can get some RNG stuff, but you can use it to purchase decent quality Azerite armor. Most people are trying to stockpile this, of course, until the raid comes out after Christmas, but still, you can get this mainly from your Mythic Plus chest, and it is scaled depending on the key that you did the previous week. So what that means is the vast majority of it will come from number 10 if you get that Mythic Plus 10 done, but on the same time, if you go further than Mythic 10, it will have diminishing returns, but you will get more. So the diminishing returns are obviously to prevent the big problems that occur when you get into more niche and super hard content, when you start getting really, really high in Mythic Plus, class balance, mate to comping, all then become far more relevant the more difficult the dungeon becomes. You have less leeway to bring maybe the less great classes. I'm not going to go too much into that, but you guys know what I'm talking about. The problem is here is obviously this week that meant a lot of people who've just been doing 10s. Basically, they do their weekly 10s and they get that done and then they go about their business. This week, everybody had to do like 15 or 16. We predict, although I'm recording this video now, the US servers aren't up, so we don't have the exact values here, but we predict that the real diminishing returns will probably hit around 15. So we all went and did 15 and 16s this week and none of us had any of those keys. What we did is push one of the keys in the group. We made a group of 5. We pushed one of the keys up to like 16, 17. And we had everybody in the group then delete their key. So when we finished that 16 or 17, everybody would have 15 or 16 keys. And that way we could spread that throughout the guild in order to get everybody done. Because otherwise we'd have to have a lot of people making separate groups and having to get everybody up. And it's just really inefficient. They're going to stop you from doing that. So if you delete your key, I just don't think you could delete your key. You just simply can't. Whatever key you get is the key you get. I personally predict this has more of a problem in the casual community than the high-end community. Unless it's like the supreme high-end. The middle ground of people doing 10s and 15s and stuff in the higher rating tiers, they're not really going to struggle with this because usually you'll have a selection of keys to choose from and you might do one that's lesser value and somebody might have a dead key, but you usually got choices on the other end. The problem is, of course, when everybody in the group has a dead key and this is the content you enjoy. You really enjoy doing this content and it just keeps giving you the same dungeon. I know from personal experience, I've been in a group where everybody had exactly the same dungeon. And we were like, well, we don't really have much of a choice here. Fail the key, and that key just stays the same dungeon. It just goes down one. You're no better off in the first place. The problem I have with this change is there's a lot more to fix, Blizz. There's a hell of a lot more things that are of priority to me. I would think you would spend more time on that than trying to stop this, because there's a whole bunch of legitimate arguments that come to being able to alter which dungeon your key is from. Of course, Mythic Plus is kind of known now for being more difficult than it was in Legion. And it just affects the community, because nobody will bankrupt a dungeon quicker than most of the casual community. They will wreck dungeons, and we've seen that in the past with dungeons like the Oculus, where Blizzard ended up filling it with all sorts of extra rewards to try and get people to do what is a relatively simple dungeon, but in the hands of a lot of the player base was incredibly difficult. So if the issue is that too many dungeons turn into dead keys, and they of course have statistics on which keys are being deleted. So if you see a vast majority of, let's pick one that it definitely isn't, like freehold keys are being deleted, maybe you need to address freehold rather than prevent people from swapping away from doing freehold. That might be a bigger priority. Are there certain classes who are just clearly unable to take part or regularly take part in the casual community in normal, what would be considered normal content, from 7 to probably 12. The people who just have so little class representation there. Maybe they need to be looked at, because these are the guys who really want to get a good key that people consider relatively easy in order to entice more people to play with them. You know, there's lots of other issues here rather than preventing the workaround. But of course, again, I leave that in the hands of people who like a good technical fix. Actually, Mike, this is a correction. It's not intended at all. Please do that. I will leave it in that hands. And I do use that voice because fuck you, honestly. Fuck you, honestly. Another one for the Mythic Raiders is they are nerfing Zool by 5% because they are, of course, removing Shuriken Storm from sub-rogues. I'm sure anybody remotely familiar with the Mythic raiding world will be aware that Zool initially was done by stacking sub-rogues, even low item level sub-rogues, 340 and up, in order to defeat Zool, because it's such a DPS check. Now they're removing Shuriken Storm, which was a big part of that, and in accordance with that, they're going to be nerfing the boss, because they know that most guilds were using the Shuriken Storm sub-rogue tactic, and obviously that no longer works as of tomorrow or today if you're in the US. A 5% nerf, I mean, it depends. If you're a guild that's had Zool on farm for a while, you've probably got enough gear to outdo it anyway. I know we weren't stacking rogues for quite a while. If you're still progressing on Zool and still have the chance to get your cutting-edge achievement before January, before the new raid comes, then it's obviously going to be a little bit of a pain in the ass if you were getting dudes to reroll rogues or to get their rogues to a reasonable level, something along those lines. 5%, I don't know until I test it. I mean, it seems a bit dumb. I did agree with one of the replies that was pointed out in my guild's Discord, at least. The fact that you think a 5% change for is making up for rogue damage really explains how the fight went live that way. I think more the removal of Shuriken Storm isn't actually tied to Zool at all. We predict there was some definite potential abuse for using sub-rogues on Jaina Proudmoore in the upcoming raid, and it was pretty clear after doing that fight that there was definitely a reasonable potential of once again abusing sub-rogues, particularly in her second phase, and I don't think Blizzard wants to allow that to happen again. It obviously wasn't really intended that you stack sub-rogues of 340 item level in order to defeat this 385 item level dropping boss. So I'm not surprised the change has gone through, although it's been in the game for such a long time. I would have left it as a niche thing, but they certainly don't want to repeat it, so that's understandable. From this point of view, we'll have to wait and see how the kills are looking over the next few hours. I don't think it'll be a major issue. It'll just come down to being an overall class Zerg. It might push other classes up, but certainly if you were planning on stacking rogues for Zool, that is now gone, unfortunately. Other than that, the rest of the content is in there. Of course, Warfront turn-ins are now changing to dailies, so if you were somebody who was saving your Warfront turn-ins till after the AP change every reset, and so you could get maximum benefits, that's probably not going to be worthwhile, because they're changing it to a daily quest, so that means they're probably just going to remove the quests that are currently in, rather than hide them and then make them reappear later. The likelihood is they're just going to delete those quests and make brand new quests in terms of daily turn-ins. So that is the Warfront turn-ins that you do, which is like Monolite Ore and fucking ham shanks or whatever the fuck the world needs in order to keep this war progressing. So those are things that you should be interested in if you're logging in the next few hours or tomorrow. I've only just got most of this information now, so that's why I'm letting you know as it is. In terms of new Azerite stuff and all that, we will look at that later down the line, but we want to see exactly how much Titan Residium we are getting. But it is on my radar. I know many of you have been asking for my opinion on the Azerite purchasables, but we will get there. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.